Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. I'm gonna provide a situation update. Thank you for joining me. God bless each and every one of you. Let's just jump right in, folks. There's plenty of things to talk about. Folks, I want to read you a little something from constitution.congress.gov. While the Constitution does not expressly confer upon the executive branch any such privilege, the Supreme Court has held that executive privilege derives from the constitutional separation of powers and from unnecessary and proper concept respecting the carrying out of duties of the presidency imposed by the Constitution. Now, in the Nixon years, some of the interpretation changed a bit because there was a break-in, there was a specific crime, unlike the investigations into Trump, where they're desperately trying to find something. Furthermore, Jack Smith, the special counsel, is not part of Congress. He's part of the executive branch, the DOJ, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. They're part of the executive branch. Okay. And it's been 2 years he hasn't committed a crime. They're trying to find out if in January, one of his conversations leads to a crime because it's an investor criminal investigation of Trump. Every criminal investigation of Trump is an investigation to see if he actually committed a crime. Otherwise, he would have already been indicted or charged. It took Nixon about less than a year to just leave, about a year to leave office after the Watergate break-in, less than a year, I believe. So, you can look in Watergate break-in timeline. There you go. They were indicted in 1972, September 15. And then November 1972, and then January 1973. He was already out of office. Anyway. The point is, Nixon resigned. Nixon resigned on August 9, 1974. Okay. So 2 years, on August 9, 1974, facing almost certain impeachment. It took about 2 years. But there was a criminal act called a break-in and people were already indicted for that breaking almost immediately. So in 1972, there was the breaking. The point is that the Supreme Court is going to rule in Trump's favor. Because with Nixon, there was Congress after him and there was a specific crime. Okay. With Trump, he's asking a federal court right now to block testimony. He's asking a federal court right now to block testimony from a grand jury. The grand jury isn't even looking at a specific crime that Trump committed, they're trying to gather information that pertaining to a possible crime. Okay. So with Nixon, there was a break-in. People were sent to prison, indicted, and then sent to jail for a break-in. People were sent to jail for covering up the burglary, a criminal act. And Nixon had tapes that Congress wanted, and he was part of the cover-up and had to, or likely part of the break, and also in many ways, and had to resign. Very simple. The special counsel wants Pence to testify. And the Supreme Court will almost certainly back Trump. Special counsel isn't even Congress. So any of the Supreme Court rulings pertaining to Watergate, where are they say, well, Congress is also separation of powers. And if the president committed a crime, then Congress has the right, but there was no specific crime that Trump was accused of committing. They say his words compelled people to do bad things. It's been 2 years. It doesn't take 2 years to find out. It took less than a year, months to find out who did. They found that immediately with the Watergate break-in, who broke into the building. But you have these people and it's like, you have this obsession with Trump. But I don't know what crime that he committed. Well, he did a lot of things in January. Well, then why hasn't he been indicted? Well, they're still investigating. They're investigating because there's no predicate crime. There's no specific crime that he committed. There's no specific crime that he committed or that he is trying to cover, like cover-up. Okay. With Trump, they start investigations for public relations purposes, because they despise him. They can't say that their policies are better. So they level the US government against him. And it's pretty obvious. And then they fall back and they feign indignation. And they said, how dare you say we're political? That's all they do. That's all they do. Everyone knows that. They go after Trump. Because they despise him. And they just want to torment him because they have almost half the electorate will always say with Trump, he's far and away the number one Republican. You're not going to be the Republican nominee, GOP nominee. There's nobody close to Santis as I like to Sanders, but he's not even close. They can't stop Trump, they can only obsess over him and try their best to create as much distrust, contempt, suspicion, their whole point. And then this is some big news. Did you guys see that new Donald Trump video? What a clown. Well, at least that's what the left is saying. They're laughing at Donald Trump. Donald Trump's talking about flying colors. What a fool. Donald Trump preaching a message of innovation and growth and creation, a great American vision similar to the original architects of the country, the pioneers who had a bold dream and a bold vision to create something great, a post-European future. What a fool is the reaction from all of these left droids, and I'm sitting back scratching my head thinking to myself, this right here, this is the problem in the West. This is why we are stagnating, this ridiculous, pompous attitude, this lazy attitude, this reliance on government, the destruction of the American dream. I want to have a conversation on this one. Today's topic: vision. Alright, folks. So here's a little snippet of Donald Trump's most recent video. Let's take a listen. Trump says, "Our objective will be a quantum leap in the American standard of living. That's what will happen. Here are just a few of the ways we can do it. Almost 1/3 of the landmass of the United States is owned by the federal government, with just a very, very small portion of that land, just a fraction, 0.5%. Would you believe that we should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development? In other words, we'll actually build new cities in our country. Again, another big opportunity is in transportation. Dozens of major companies in the United States and China are racing to develop vertical takeoff and landing vehicles for families and individuals. Likewise, through our Strategic National Manufacturing Initiative, which is going to be very big and very, very successful, we will turn forgotten communities into hives of industry, producing the goods we will no longer import from China. We will also have a major initiative on lowering the cost of living, with a special focus on lowering the costs of a new car and lowering the cost to build a single-family home. And they will be beautiful homes. And I will ask Congress to support baby bonuses for young parents to help launch a new baby boom. Finally, I'll challenge the governors of all 50 states to join me in a great modernization and beautification campaign, getting rid of ugly buildings, refurbishing our parks and our public spaces, making cities and towns more livable, ensuring a pristine environment, and building towering monuments to our true American heroes. Very importantly, I will also make sure all of these new places are safe. We love and cherish our police, they will do the job the way they have to. It is time to start talking about greatness for our country again. I will dramatically increase living standards and build a future that brings our country together through excitement, opportunity, and success. Thank you very much." Okay, folks, the one word that I keep seeing left Boyd's use as bizarre. Donald Trump released. What a freak. And while listen, of course, Trump is doing what Trump always does, maybe being a little bit hyperbolic, maybe just kind of riffing, and maybe saying things that aren't necessarily feasible. Are we going to get to a point where we have flying cars in the near future? Probably not. And leftovers, of course, are pouncing on Donald Trump's choice of words or his flamboyant personality and ways of speaking that tends to exaggerate things, and they're completely ignoring the actual context or the actual meaning of what Donald Trump was trying to say here. Because once again, he is 100% right? And to be completely honest with you, I've been waiting for Western leaders in general to be pushing this kind of message. The reality is, Europe and North America, as here in the West, we've gotten stagnant and lazy. We look at what our ancestors' generations before us built, it was truly magnificent. I mean, architectural marvels, design, such incredible beauty and craftsmanship, artisan skill, some of the most beautiful cities and sites on the planet, not some of the most beautiful cities and sites on the planet. And what are we doing? We haven't done anything for like 50-60 years. You walk around North American cities and all you see is cheap construction. You don't like these kinds of buildings that are popping up everywhere these days. Cheap bricks, cheap materials, aluminum, all of this garbage, square boxes. As with no character, you walk through these places, you're trying to rent an apartment or buy a unit. And it's literally just a white box with wood floors. Other than a couple art installations and a couple of new fancy buildings, Western cities really haven't developed. We haven't done anything. And I've been waiting for politicians to push forth a message of innovation and creation, unleashing an economy to create the future of what a society should look like. And that's exactly what Donald Trump's doing here. And you know what? He's actually approaching the issue with the right kind of plan, and he wants to create, quote, a contest to charter 10 new cities. In other words, he wants to create actual economic incentive. He wants companies, he wants private individuals, capitalistic entities to fight for the chance of spearheading some of these projects, rather than relying on government. In other words, actually get something done rather than this $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill that Joe Biden passed. And I'll probably end up fixing some potholes and maybe building a bridge. Donald Trump is proposing a future vision of productivity, innovation, and creation. And he's somehow right now the laughingstock on Twitter. To me, something doesn't compute. People in the West are seemingly content with the status quo. And they're content with economic stagnation and the more bloated government and more government reliance. I don't know about you guys, but I much prefer the model that Donald Trump is currently suggesting. I mean, it's traveled the world a little bit. The West is losing, especially when it comes to the race towards a future city, a future civilization. I mean, just look at what's going on in Asia. For instance, last year, I traveled to Singapore. And in terms of infrastructure, city design, just the basic cleanliness of the city and the ease of travel in the subway system, you pretty much can't compare it to anything in the West right now. Of course, Singapore is no utopia. I mean, in a certain way, it's almost like a police state with the amount of cameras and control everywhere, but just from an infrastructure perspective, and how they've been able to create this futuristic, beautiful city. From my perspective, it should be a model. And what's truly incredible is how they do so much with so little. Singapore's highest national income tax rate is 22%. For anyone making over $320,000 a year plus, get they're very efficient, they're business and innovation focused. And most importantly, the city-state has a future vision. There's no reason why the richest country on the planet shouldn't be leading the charge when it comes to innovation and a future vision. That was Donald Trump gonna get elected to a second term and turn the world into a utopia? Absolutely not. Leftovers are trying to dunk on him. Why didn't you do that in the first 4 years that you had? Or where's the money gonna come from? Where's the actual concrete plan? All of which I mostly agree with. I mean, Donald Trump isn't going to be able to just magically snap his fingers and change the trajectory of the United States overnight. But at least it's a win in the sense that someone is saying it. There's this notion that politicians overpromise and underdeliver, but frankly, I think politicians for generations have been underpromising and severely underdelivering. I think it's high time that the standard be that elected officials present some sort of visionary future image. We need to be voting for some great future rather than voting for $1,400 stimulus checks and potential student loan cancellation and other nonsense like that. I don't know, in a certain way, it almost feels as if it's just a falling empire. We're witnessing the fall of the West. As the West stagnates, gets lazy content with laziness content with the status quo. And I think other more hungry and up-and-coming continents in the world are probably going to end up out-competing us unless we somehow overnight have a shift in terms of our collective philosophy and start really building and producing again. All we do is consume and poison our own bodies, whine and complain about frivolous things. Meanwhile, the rest of the globe, the majority of the world's population are busting their behinds trying to outpace us. That's my observation. I actually appreciated where Donald Trump was coming from. The general reaction in the ridiculing of Donald Trump, I find truly disheartening. I think it's a breath of fresh air to be seeing a politician promoting a message of what we could be and what we could accomplish, because I think in a lot of ways we're falling pretty short these days. Ladies and gentlemen, give me your thoughts below. And hit subscribe right now. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for watching the video.